What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some of my final thoughts ahead of the Gameweek 25 deadline. And this video is out a little bit earlier than normal because we do have a Friday deadline. So I'm going to cover the injury news that we've got, answer a bunch of your questions, and anything additional from the press conferences later today, I will cover in the deadline stream later on. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. So let's start with some Chelsea updates. There were rumours that Nicolas Jackson would be out until after the next international break, which is between game weeks 29 and 30, and Maresca has basically confirmed that now. So Nicolas Jackson is going to be out until April. If you're a Jackson owner, he needs to be sold. There's no reason to keep hold of him. I'm going to talk about potential forwards to bring in later on. There were also updates about Lavia, Badiashile, and Fofana, but from an FPL point of view, not really all that relevant. This is relevant though. I spoke last week about how if I had Sanchez, I'd probably sell him to Pickford because there's a chance that he'll lose his place. Jorgensen played, and Maresca said that Sanchez is being rested, but confirms that Jorgensen is now his first choice. He said the idea is not to change game by game, but our keeper at the moment is Philippe. So if you've got Sanchez and he's your only goalkeeper that's, well, previously was playing, he needs to be sold. You haven't got a goalkeeper. Jorgensen is number one. Jorgensen is only 4.5 million, I think. But to be honest, even with... Actually, sorry, he's 4.2 million. So that's actually kind of interesting. It's a nice, cheap playing goalkeeper at the moment. But I still think I would probably avoid. Outside of Southampton at home and Leicester at home, the fixtures are not amazing for clean sheets. 3 of the next 4 are away. Brighton, Villa and Arsenal. And also, once a manager is swapped his goalkeeper, there's nothing to stop him doing it again. All it takes is for Jorgensen to have a few bad games and he might switch back to Sanchez. I don't think that's that likely, but I just can't see any need to take the risk. Jorgensen is definitely one to look at later on, though, potentially on wildcard, although Chelsea aren't likely to blank. But for 4.2 million, as someone just a little bit more expensive than Fabianski, possibly worth it. But if you're looking for a main playing keeper, I'd look elsewhere. Possibly Martinez for the double. You could go to Kepa at Bournemouth, for example. But either way, if you've got Sanchez, he has to go now. So just to add something on the end here, obviously with that Nicolas Jackson injury, someone else has to play that number 9 position. I think the initial thinking for most people is that Nkunku's going to come in and play that role. But Maresca in his press conference said that Nkunku is not a number 9. He's an attacking midfielder and that they can try Neto or even Madueke in that number 9 role. So personally, even though the player that comes in and fulfills that position will probably do quite well and be quite cheap, I think there's too much uncertainty there about exactly who it will be and how it's going to work. And so I would probably just ignore Chelsea attackers outside of Cole Palmer still. So I'm sure most of you have seen by now that Kai Havertz is likely to be out for the rest of the season. And Arsenal have quite a few attacking injuries at the moment. So Havertz, Jesus, Martinelli and Saka all out. And for that reason, some of you might just think it's worth ignoring the Arsenal attack. And that would be fair enough. But also it presents an opportunity to potentially pick up a differential as well. And Arsenal's fixtures are not bad. So Leicester away in 25, West Ham at home in 26. The 2 after that are Forest away and Man United away. So a bit tougher, but not awful. And then there's a definite fixture in 29 against Chelsea at home. The biggest beneficiary in terms of minutes is almost certainly going to be Trossard. He's probably their most senior attacker now for that front 3. Obviously, Odegaard's always going to play, but he sits a little bit deeper. In terms of Premier League seasons under their belt, Sterling is obviously ahead of Trossard, but Trossard for Arsenal is going to play with all these injuries. And the thing I quite like about him is if you do go for him as that differential, even if Saka and Martinelli get back fit, because there's no Jesus or Havertz, one of those 3 players, Trossard, Martinelli or Saka, is probably going to play through the middle as the number 9, and it's almost certainly going to be Trossard of those 3. So I think his minutes are good right now, but even as some of those players start getting back fit, Trossard will probably still continue to play. So I think for 6.8 million, he's worth looking at. If you're already looking at a Bournemouth midfielder and now you're suddenly looking at Trossard and you just want to play it safe by going for Kluivert, Semenya, Utara, absolutely fine. I am not saying that Trossard is now essential, but he's definitely worth looking at. Another beneficiary in the short term should be Nwaneri at 4.5 million. Now, he's only 17. I don't think I can sit here and tell you he's guaranteed to play every single game while Arsenal have all those injuries, but his minutes have got to be pretty good going forward. Arteta is running out of options to use. I think the thing to think about is we just had a double game week. We've had a last-minute game week 25 double as well. There's a blank in 29. Not everyone is going to use free hits. Transfers are quite precious. So if you go for Nwaneri and then he doesn't keep starting, how much is that going to impact your team? If you think you can cover it quite nicely, then I think for 4.5 million, there's absolutely reason to look at him. Because even if he doesn't play all the minutes or gets the odd benching, he's only 4.5. So I think he is worth considering as well. And then I suspect that Sterling will play just because of the lack of options, but he's hardly been used this season. And I wouldn't put it past Arteta just to think of something else. There's even rumours going around that Merino is being used in training as like a number 9 just to see how that works. And obviously they could play Trossard through the middle, Nwaneri on the right, and then go and put like a defensive player on the left, like Zinchenko or Lewis Skelly or whoever could go and play left wing. So Arteta does have options. And I think sometimes when a player gets injured, like Trent, for example, we know full well that Bradley's just going to play. I think when you've got as many issues as Arsenal do, Arteta might try a few things. But whatever he tries, I'm pretty certain that Trossard will play. So if you're looking for that differential, that word I've said a lot of times in this little section here, he's probably the one to go for. There's another £50 Amazon voucher up for grabs for Game Week 25. All you have to do is join the Let's Talk FPL Premier League Pick'em League over on Sleep, which is completely free to do, and make your predictions for all of this weekend's games. So you just have to predict whether it's going to be a home win, an away win, or a draw for each match in Game Week 25. So I'm going to submit my predictions to show you how quick and easy it is to do. So first game up is Brighton versus Chelsea. Brighton just beat Chelsea in the FA Cup, so Chelsea will be out for revenge. But no Nicholas Jackson, I think, will weaken them. I'm going to go for a Brighton home win. Arsenal to beat Leicester despite the injury concerns at the moment. Same with Aston Villa against Ipswich. Fulham versus Forest is a bit harder to call. Both teams played well. Forest very good defensively. Because I can't call it, I'm going to go for a draw. Man City versus Newcastle. Man City defence just not at it at all this season. Isak and co will cause them problems. But I think ultimately Man City are at home and have got enough firepower to beat Newcastle. So I'm actually going to go for a Man City home win, which I don't think will be popular. Bournemouth to beat Southampton seems pretty easy. West Ham to beat Brentford. There is a question about Graham Potter, assistant manager, later on. That could be interesting. Palace to beat Everton at home. Hopefully Eze is back. Liverpool versus Wolves at home I think is fairly obvious. And I've got to beat back Man United even though they're playing against Spurs. That's how quick and easy it is to do. If you scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description below, you can join the Let's Talk FPL League. Whoever gets the most predictions correct will win that £50 Amazon voucher. If it's a tie for the number of correct predictions, I'll do a random draw to determine the winner on the Game Week 26 deadline stream. So get your predictions submitted before the game start. So for benching headaches this week, there were quite a few attackers that I was asked about. As always, if you've got 2 players on this list, whoever's higher up the list is the one that I would put into your 11. I had to put Isak number 1. Despite on paper Man City away not being great, it just feels wrong to bench him, and it's not like that Man City defence is watertight. So if you've kept Isak, I think you've got to put him into your starting 11. Next was Kluivert. Bournemouth have basically one of the best fixtures you can get this season in Southampton away, and he's on penalties, and the minutes are great. I did put Mateta next, ahead of both Dango Utara and Semenyo, pretty much because he's at home and he's on penalties. So Everton at home is not as good as Southampton away. I think when you couple Mateta with penalties and good minutes, he's probably just about ahead of Utara and Semenyo. But as always, there's really not much in some of these calls. I've put Utara ahead of Semenyo simply because he's playing as that number 9. The reason that long-term I think Semenyo is the better pick is because of long-term minutes. But in the short term, Utara playing out of position, that looks pretty good. Then I've got Jimenez, Forest at home, and then Wood, Fulham away. Not much to split between them. Wood's minutes probably slightly better. They're both on penalties. I've gone for Jimenez ahead just because he's at home. Again, not really much in that one. Visser next up, West Ham away. Then I've gone for Amad Diallo, who a few people have kept hold of. Spurs away. Some people are considering benching Amad for one of the defenders I've got listed below him. If you want to do that, I actually don't mind it. I find it very difficult to bench attackers for defenders most of the time. And Spurs defence, like Man City, is not exactly watertight. So I don't think I would go out of my way to bench Amad. But if you wanted to do it and play Gabriel, Munoz or Robinson instead, I think that's fine. As for the defenders, because of how good the Arsenal defence is and the attacking output from set pieces, I had to put Gabriel at the top against Leicester away. Then I've gone for Munoz against Everton at home. He's got his attack and return and clean sheet against Man United. Looks good to do it again against Everton. And I think because Munoz's attacking threat is skewed so much towards goals, rather than assists, he's got to be ahead of Robinson. And also on paper, Everton is just a better fixture than Forest at home as well. So for defenders, I've gone Gabriel, then Munoz, then Robinson. And for those of you like me that have got João Pedro, I'd have him right at the bottom. Because although there is definitely a chance he will start against Chelsea, it's far from guaranteed. And I think the fact that he got subbed at half-time against Forest in Game Week 24 has kind of really put me off him as an option. It might be that he starts against Chelsea, does really well, and then is back in the team for 26 against Southampton. All of a sudden, he's much higher up this list. But I think because Chelsea at home is nothing special, and there are doubts there, he's got to be at the bottom. So let's get into some of your questions. Who would you move Ndiaye to for around the same money? So if I'm looking at forwards for less than 6 million, the options are probably Jimenez, Delap, Welbeck, and Beto at Everton. Now, I am recording this before the David Moyes press conference, so he might turn around and say that Ndiaye is fine, but I think we're expecting him to be ruled out for a few weeks. If that happens, Beto is a 4.9 million forward for Everton that's pretty much nailed at the moment. They just don't really have anyone else to play there. But not only that, he's obviously scoring goals at the moment, right? He scored once against Liverpool, twice against Leicester. He's come in and done really well. And also, Everton are going to need a new penalty taker if Calvert-Lewin and Ndiaye are both out. So there is a chance that Beto could be on penalties for less than 5 million. I don't know long-term how good his minutes will be, but right now I don't see him being on the bench anytime soon until players start to get fit. If you're looking for a more certain player long-term, then Raul Jimenez is, of course, number 1, number 9 for Fulham. We've known that for a little while now, and he's on penalties. And I think the fixtures are quite good. Like, he does often get subbed early, but 3 in the next 5 are at home. So Forest, Palace, and then Spurs in Game Week 29. And the 2 away games are Wolves and Brighton. So it's not the perfect 5-game week spell, but I think it's pretty nice for a 5.6 million penalty taker. So he would probably be the top option under 6 million. I don't mind Delap either at Ipswich. Got Villa away this week, then Spurs, Man United, Palace, and Forest. But I just think Raul Jimenez's fixtures are a little bit better. There's not a huge amount in it. So if you've got a gut feeling for Delap, you could look at him. And then Welbeck is obviously back fit at the moment, only 5.5 million. I don't mind him too much. My only worry is we all felt like João Pedro was absolutely nailed, and now we're a little bit worried about his minutes going forward. There is potential for Welbeck to drop out of that team. I will say, though, pretty much every game he's been fit for, he has started. So I don't mind him at all, and they do have Southampton in 26. But I think sub 6 million, the safest bet is probably Raul Jimenez. But it's all quite close either way. If you've got a bit more money to spend, then Visser at 6.3 million is probably better than all of them. If you can go up a little bit higher, Mateta's got really good fixtures for the next 4 and is also on penalties, but doesn't play in 29. So you need to factor that in. If you're free hitting in 29, then I really like the idea of going for Mateta, because Palace will probably double in 33, so you can just hold in the whole way through. Cunha is also worth looking at. I mentioned him on my team selection video yesterday. It's just annoying to have to buy him before Liverpool away. And Bournemouth away in 26 is not an easy fixture either. But 27, 28, 29, Fulham at home, Everton at home, Southampton away is pretty nice. And if you're holding longer term, the Wolves fixtures from 30 onwards are also decent as well. West Ham, Ipswich, Spurs, Man United, Leicester, next 5. After that Southampton game in 29. So I really like Cunha. I've got to mention Chris Wood, but I feel like at this point, most people probably already own him. No issues of bringing him in. I'm probably not going to do it myself because I just hate points. Why would I want them? But like 2 away games, Fulham and Newcastle, then Arsenal and Man City, it doesn't look that great. I'd rather wait until Ipswich. But if you want to buy the guy that scored the most points out of all forwards for 7.1 million, who's on penalties, that seems like probably quite a good idea. So definitely don't rule him out. So sub 6 million, probably Jimenez. Visser otherwise, if you're free hitting in 29, I'd try and find the money for Mateta. So would you buy a Bournemouth midfielder or attack the double and get Rodgers? Now, I did cover this in the game week preview, so I'll keep my answer brief here. If you've got a lot of transfers spare, I'd probably attack the double. Just get Rodgers for Ipswich at home and Liverpool at home and then deal with him afterwards. I should also point out, by the way, I don't think that Rodgers all of a sudden becomes a massive problem from 26. Like Chelsea at home, Palace away and Brentford away is not completely awful. But I think from 26 onwards, you'd definitely rather have a Kluivert, Semenyo or Utara instead. And obviously Rodgers does blank in 29. If you just really want to get the Bournemouth player, or you don't have many transfers, you don't want to mess about after this week, just bring in one of those players instead. Kluivert's probably the number 1. Then I'd probably have Semenyo, then Utara, although in the short term, they're all pretty good. And that's kind of how I would view it. So lots of transfers, you attack the double. If you're only sat there with one and other issues to deal with, I'd probably just play it safe and get the Bournemouth player who's going to be good for quite a while. So similar question here. Would you buy Mbeumo this week or double up on Bournemouth midfielders and buy Mbeumo next week? So if you're definitely going to buy them both anyway, I would just take the Southampton fixture this week. It's not that Mbeumo is bad against West Ham away. We know he's going to play pretty much the full 90 minutes and he's on penalties. He's been brilliant this season. And if you were only buying one, I probably would lean slightly more towards Mbeumo, although he is quite a bit more expensive. I think if you're getting one this week and one in 26, you probably just take the Southampton fixture. Like, is Mbeumo capable of outscoring Kluivert, Semenyo and Utara this week? Absolutely. I think on paper, you don't get much better than Southampton, so go and buy your Bournemouth player. So who are the best Aston Villa players to buy for the double? Now, keep in mind, I'm recording this before Unai Emery's press conference. You should definitely wait for that update before making any decisions. But basically, if Watkins is past fit, he is probably one of the best, if not the best option from that Aston Villa team. Potentially still on penalties. He has missed a couple, but the fixtures are good. He's their main attacker, main goal threat. I really like him. I think if Unai Emery is quite positive about his fitness, then I'd still expect him to start twice, even though he's been out. Because they don't really have many other options that can play number 9. Like, Marlon can do it, Rashford can do it, but it's not like having Duran on the bench like they had before. So Watkins, if he's fit, if there's any doubts there, I would just ignore him. Morgan Rogers is the most nailed midfielder that's also quite attacking. So he's definitely the one I would look at there. If I was going for a second midfielder, possibly Marlon. There is risk with a minute. Same with Rashford. In defence, Luca Dean might start both games, but that is not a guarantee. Maatsen could play in one of them. Luca Dean could get subbed before the 60th minute. Too much risk there. If Konza is out, they really don't have many centre-backs to choose from. I would expect Dizazi to play both games. But keep in mind that Villa played Chelsea in game week 26. He can't play that game because he's on loan. And obviously Villa will blank in 29. So buying defenders from Aston Villa doesn't sound all that great to me. And then Martinez in goal will definitely play all the matches. So he's probably the actual best defensive player to look at if you need a new goalkeeper. So as much as I like going all in for the doubles and it's Ipswich at home, it's another home game against Liverpool after that, I'd be a little bit cautious and definitely wait for that update. But Rodgers is good to go. Martinez is good in goal. Watkins, if he's fit, is probably the best 3. Just to add something on the end there, if it ends up being that Watkins is ruled out, then the minutes of Rashford and Marlon obviously get better. And I think the most likely outcome is that Marlon plays through the middle if Watkins isn't available. So for that price point of 5.5 million for an Aston Villa midfielder with a double, he could be worth taking a punt on if we know for sure that Watkins is out. The problem is, if we get an update that Watkins is a doubt for Ipswich but should be back for Liverpool, then Marlon might start one and not start the other one. So that risk is definitely there. But if you're someone that's looking for a big punt this week, then Marlon, if Watkins is ruled out, could be nice. But if Watkins plays, we know Rodgers is going to as well. They've got Ramsey there. There's just too much worry about the minutes for Marlon and Rashford outside of that. So should those that still have their assistant manager chip left use it in game week 25 or hold until later on, assuming we used our triple captain in game week 24? If you didn't use your triple captain in 24, by the way, I'd be pretty tempted to use it this week, because you might not get another opportunity to use it on Salah in a double game week. And Wolves at home and Villa away is a pretty nice double. So if you've got your triple captain, I would probably play it this week. As for the assistant manager, we've essentially got the small double this week, a double in 33, and probably one in 36 as well. There are scenarios where there's no double game weeks in 36, but it seems pretty unlikely to me. If 33 is the bigger double, that's likely where most people will use their bench boost. So if you've got assistant manager and free hit, that's the 2 chips left to use. If you're pretty sure you're going to free hit in a blank, like 29 or 34, then you've got an opportunity later on in 36 to use the assistant manager chip. You don't have to use it now. I think activating it in 25 is fine, but it's not an amazing opportunity. Those of us that used it in 24 obviously did it for back-to-back doubles, but you've missed that now, right? Especially if you use your triple captain instead, you're probably absolutely laughing in terms of the amount of points you got from Salah. I don't think 26 looks that ideal. So let's say you go for Slot or Unai Emery this week. In 26, Slot has Man City away, which is not great, and Unai Emery has Chelsea at home. And there's not a huge amount of table bonus games in game week 26, so you're probably playing it on someone like Arteta versus West Ham. You could potentially go for Leicester against Brentford as table bonus, but you're making a transfer in 26 and then probably another transfer in game week 27 as well. So I think I would probably look to hold the chip until later on, hope that there's a good double in 36, and also hope there's some good table bonus opportunities at that time as well. Worst case scenario, you hold the assistant manager now and don't use it. You bench boost in 33, for example, and then there's no more doubles, in which case you'll only get 3 games out of your assistant manager. But if you get table bonus opportunities, you might still get good points. So I would probably save it, but if you want to go the least risky route, you just use it now to get the double. Also, by the way, if you're someone that wants to free hit in a double, you don't want to use it in a blank, you've only got 3 double game weeks potentially left. So if you skip this one, you've got bench boost, free hit, and assistant manager to use later on, and probably only 2 doubles. So in that case, again, I would probably just activate the assistant manager now. But if you're happy to use it in a blank, you could wait until later on. I think that's what I would do, but it's difficult to say for sure because I can't put myself in your shoes. I've used my chip. But I think saving it for 36 onwards probably looks pretty good still. So what are your thoughts on Graham Potter, assistant manager, instead of Unai Emery for game weeks 25 and 26? 2 table bonus opportunities and saves a transfer moving Emery in 26. So I've seen a few people look at this and I kind of get it, right? West Ham are at home to Brentford. It is a table bonus game. I think West Ham's squad is capable of more than what their league position suggests. And obviously if you get that win, that's worth like 18, 19 points plus, which is pretty big. The reason I'm not sure I would do it though is game week 26. Yes, West Ham have another table bonus game, but it's against Arsenal and it's away. Now, to be fair, for table bonus, you don't necessarily need a win, right? If you get the win against Brentford and only a draw against Arsenal, you're laughing. It's still big points. But how much likelihood is there of West Ham getting a result against Arsenal? I know they've got a lot of injuries, but they're very strong at home. It's very hard to score against them, and they've still got capable attackers. So I don't particularly like that fixture for Potter versus, say, Unai Emery at home to Chelsea. I appreciate that the Villa game is not table bonus, but I think there's more chance of Villa getting a result at home to Chelsea than there is West Ham away to Arsenal. So I'm not convinced all that much it's saving you a transfer. And obviously you're dodging Emery, who has a double game week in 25. And we've already seen how powerful this chip can be. Like, Arne Slot had no table bonus. He still walks away with 15 points. Like, Unai Emery is more than capable, or I should say Villa are more than capable of getting a win against Ipswich, which already sets you, to good points, and then potentially getting a result against Liverpool. They also have a table bonus game. So I get it right. Liverpool is tough. Brentford isn't as tough. Look at Graham Potter. But I think you just take the double game week. And if you need to make a transfer in 26, so be it. Because ultimately, Potter doesn't have a good fixture in 26 either. So another assistant manager question. Is it worth taking a hit to move from David Moyes to Unai Emery? Now, I think some people have been underestimating just how powerful this chip is. Hopefully, Game Week 24 has shown you the kind of points that are on offer. I would definitely take this hit. Absolutely no questions asked. David Moyes has got a non-table bonus game against Palace. Unai Emery has Ipswich at home and then a table bonus game against Liverpool. You've just seen David Moyes get 22 points in one game week with very similar fixtures. And it doesn't mean that Aston Villa will go and get a draw against Liverpool, but it's possible. And Ipswich at home, they'll be strong favourites for. So given that there's 20 points plus potentially on offer, this is absolutely worth a hit. If Everton were at home to Palace and it was a table bonus game, maybe you could justify holding Moyes. But I think because it's away and because it's just a normal game, I'd definitely take this hit. So Alexander Isak and Chris Wood both have tough fixtures coming up. Is it worth holding them through if you think they are season-long holds from game weeks 29 and 30 onwards? Simple answer is yes. And I think a lot of people that are holding these two players also have quite a bit of value tied up in them. So if you're not sure about selling them, you should wait until you are more sure. And also at this specific stage of the season, compared to maybe earlier on in the season or even previous seasons, there's not a huge amount of standout forwards to even buy. I think a lot of people that have got like Jackson, Ndiaye, etc. are probably going to struggle with exactly who to bring in. So you've got Isak and Chris Wood, the two top scoring forwards this season. Why not just keep hold of them a little bit longer? And as always in FPL, how your team is set up will always dictate what your next few transfers are. So it's easy-ish for someone like me who doesn't own Chris Wood to say, I'm probably just not going to buy him, I'm going to look elsewhere. But if I was an owner, I'd probably be holding. I probably wouldn't be looking to force him out. It's the same with Isak. I had eyed up Isak to Watkins, and maybe I'll still do that. But with a number of other issues in my team, I should probably deal with them first and just keep hold of Isak, who's been in let me get my words out, incredible form for a lot of this season. So yeah, it's more than fine to keep hold of them. And Isak in particular is going to be really important later on because Newcastle will definitely have a double game week because of that postponed game between them and Crystal Palace. I'm going to leave that one there. I'm not going to talk about my team in this video because I did the team selection video on Thursday and really not much has changed. I really need information from the press conferences that I don't have yet at the time of recording this. So I'll talk about that a little bit more on the deadline stream. I'm almost certainly going to use both of my transfers, and that deadline stream will start at 4:30 p.m. UK time and finish on the deadline at 6:30 p.m. UK time. Don't forget to download Sleeper if you haven't done so already. Join the Let's Talk FPL for the Premier League Pick'em game. You've got a chance of winning a £50 Amazon voucher for Game Week 25. Otherwise, I will catch you later on for the deadline stream. See you then.